So in today's versus mode, we are going to do a versus mode between the left side Retro Game 300 versus the right, the LDK. The LDK, this is the first version. There's some of them called the Game Boy clone or whatever. But nevertheless, we're going to do a side-by-side comparison. What are the differences and what is my personal favorite. Keep in mind, I'm not going to say which one you're going to need to buy. This is more like a side-by-side comparison. You can think about it, which one fits your need. Alright, ready for it? I am. Let's go! Side by side, as you can see, the Retro Game 300 is way bigger. Or way longer. When putting them in this position, you can see that this LDK device is pretty damn tiny. Alright, so when holding this Retro Game 300, just keep in mind it's still a little console, but it feels a little bit better because it's bigger again. I played a couple of hours on this thing and it didn't cramp up my hands like with the LDK. So what I really like about it is the shoulder buttons at the back, because your fingers fall into it and it feels quite nice, and very nice clicky buttons. So I want to point out the first handheld of these two. The LDK was my first love. I can tell you, I still love it, don't get me wrong, but it's tiny, and I think a lot of YouTubers did tell you, if you're having big hands, this is going to cramp up your hands. I'm going to stand like this because this thing is way too small for my hands. Alright, so if it comes holding this device for a very long time, both are not perfect, keep in mind, but I really like the Retro Game. So for a long time play, this Retro Game 300, oh yeah, I like it a lot. Okay, so let's talk about the buttons, the layout, and how does they feel. Okay, as you can, I hope you can see the camera. The D-pad of the Retro Game is a little bit smaller than if you compare it with the LDK. The travel of the LDK D-pad is a little bit longer, but I'm going to be honest, I love this D-pad of the LDK, and this is the reason why I still have this thing. I love it. When playing 3D Red Remake, still, this one is not bad at all, don't get me wrong, but still this is a little bit better. We're having two buttons here, and of course the 4 over here. The select and start are missing on the LDK. That's a little bit of a bummer. Personally, I really like this old school select and start. Yes, they are here, but still, extra buttons, always better. Okay, what I already mentioned with the mold. I really like this Retro Game. The shoulder buttons are very clickish. I really like it. And compared with the LDK, they are super clickish. Personally, I have this very, let's say, cheap feel to it. And they are on the top, so when holding it, to be honest, it's a little bit cramping up your hands in my case, but when holding it, to be honest, I don't use the shoulder buttons very often, because I think they are not very convenient. So the buttons we are missing here at the front are here basically at the side. So it's not that they are missing, but they are just put it on the location. Just wanted to point it out to make that clear. Both of the systems have an on and off switch, so keep that in mind. The volume is over here, little scrolling wheel, and on the Retro Game it's on the right bottom, or right side, or what you want to call it. And this is very tiny, and if you look at it, it's a little bit bigger, but still both are fine to reach. So there isn't jack output, no HDMI output. What I have to understand that with some software it's not possible to use the TV out function. Just want to point out, not all the firmware versions. And for the charging port, this is pretty weird by the way. This one is using micro USB and this one is using Type-C. So with these Chinese portable systems, it's always the guess what is the charging port. Some they are using this really old school USB connection, and some just use the micro USB. In this case we are just going to get Type-C now. I hate all those different cables. Okay, well I think it's very important, I don't need to forget, the push of the buttons. Still, I really like the Retro Game. Let's see, I can see a little, they are a little bit bigger, but the touch is very nice. So, okay, how funny is this? So in other words, the D-pad on the LDK is better, in my opinion, but the normal buttons are better on the Retro Game. Alright, so if it comes to, let's say, specifications, I'm just going to say it, they're equal. They're just, I will not say exactly the same, but if you look at the power of both devices, the emulation power will be the same. We're going to do a little bit of a gameplay, but as you can see, the screen measurements of the LDK is a little bit different, and they are using this very nice EPS screen, and that is something that I really like about the LDK. Don't get me wrong, the retro game is not bad at all, but still it's not an EPS, and the view angle, we're going to do this test. As you can see, the view angle is of course better of the LDK. Okay, now we're seeing a reflection, but you're getting the point. Alright, let's do a little bit of a gameplay, and so I can show you the colors and the differences. Alright, so let's choose, for example, Mr. Driller. The reason why I choose this game, as you can see, is a very colorful game. And I think it's very pointed here. You can see the differences between the screen. The dimensions of the LDK are a little bit different, but overall it's not bad. Alright, so what you can see here, and if you look at the blocks, the LDK, because it's an EPS screen, it's very colorful and very vibrant. So if it comes to the screen, personally I really love the LDK. It's a little bit of a bummer they didn't use let's say an EPS like the LDK in the retro game. Missed opportunity if you ask me. But if you look at the speaker, both have a mono speaker, and I think you can hear it on the camera. This little speaker is freaking loud. For especially when you're playing Street of Rage and you have this crazy wicked soundtrack. Oh man, that's really cool. So, but let's take a close look at the retro game. And with the retro game, it's also freaking loud. But it's here at the front, so I don't know what's better, if it's at the front of the system or at the back. I'm thinking it's more like the original game where they have a speaker at the front. Let me know what you think of this, by the way. Okay, so the next thing. Okay, let's open it up, and this one is running on a BL5C. This is more like the old school Nokia battery, 1000 milliamps. You can see it. Yep. And this one, and that is why I think it's also very cool. Oh, you can already see it here. This one is running on the DP5L. This is not a Nokia battery, but this one is an 1800 milliamp capacity. So in other words, this thing has more juice, so a longer playtime. And I'm thinking, what's the playtime? It depends a little bit how you charge it and what kind of games you're playing. Are you overclocking it? And overall, this thing will maybe, let's say 30 minutes, an hour. I have really no clue. Nevertheless, a couple of hour playtime. So these are the batteries that comes inside the two little devices. And if you're thinking of swapping out firmware, both of the systems have this window in the casing itself, so you can just easily grab the SD card and just mess around with it. Very cool. Okay, what I really like to point out is it doesn't matter which version you buy if it comes adding homebrew games, adding emulators, etc, etc, etc. Basically, if you look at the software, they are identical to each other. Maybe the software itself will be, let's say, a little bit different, but what it does all the same. So that is not a problem. So if you look at the software and the support, etc, etc, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. Just wanted to say it doesn't really matter because I love them all. Alright people, for the final conclusion between the Retro Game 300 and the LDK. So first of all, what I need to point out, the Retro Game 300 is a little bit heavier if you compare it with the LDK. Keep that in mind. I just needed to say it before I'm going to forget it. But a lot of people were asking, what is your favorite? At this moment, Retro Game 300 is my favorite, and simply because I really like the mold and how it fits in my hand. But again, both systems have pros and the cons. For example, the Retro Game, not a great screen to compare with the LDK. The D-pad on the LDK is a little bit better. So, oh my god, can we not make a fusion or something with these two? Then we have a better D-pad and a better screen. But nevertheless, the LDK is also a very great device. Both have a little bit of the same price range. I really love to know what you think of this. I hope this video helped. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell, and see you in my next video. And if you're into gaming, don't forget to check out the Wicked Gaming channel. See you next time. Bye bye.